Hey everyone, today we need to discuss something that's going to significantly affect millions of Americans receiving Social Security and disability benefits. And I'm talking about roughly 70 million people here. This is critical information that many folks are completely unaware of, and it's going to catch a lot of people by surprise when they see their January checks. Now, before we dive in, I want to be crystal clear about something, because I know this might cause some confusion. When I mention 9.6% in this discussion, I am not talking about the cost of living adjustment. Let me repeat that. This is not about the COLA percentage. The COLA for next year is 2.8%. What I'm talking about is something entirely different, and honestly, it's pretty alarming when you look at the numbers. Here's what's happening. Every single year, we see the Medicare Part B premium climb higher and higher. For this year, beneficiaries are paying $185 per month. That was already a substantial jump from the previous year. But here's where things get really interesting. And by interesting, I mean concerning. For next year, the Medicare Part B premium is jumping by 9.6%, which translates to an additional $17.90 per month. Now, you might be thinking, okay, that's just under $18 a month. That doesn't sound too terrible. But hold on, because when we start doing the math and comparing this to the cost of living adjustment, things start to look pretty shocking. Let me break down some calculations I've run, because these numbers tell a story that I think everyone needs to hear. We're receiving a 2.8% cost of living adjustment to our benefits. Now compare that to the 9.6% increase in Medicare Part B premiums. When you do the math, the premium increase is actually 3.4 times larger than the COLA increase. Think about that for a moment. They're raising the premium by more than 3 times the rate they're increasing benefits. Now, doesn't that strike you as odd? I mean, if we're being logical here, if Medicare expenses are rising so dramatically that they need to increase premiums by 9.6%, shouldn't the cost of living adjustment reflect similar economic pressures? Shouldn't inflation and rising costs that affect Medicare also affect everything else that the COLA is supposed to compensate for? You would think these percentages would be somewhat aligned, right? But they're not even close. Let's get even more specific and look at how this affects actual beneficiaries with average benefit amounts. The average Social Security retirement benefit is approximately $2,000 per month, actually slightly higher than that. For disability benefits, we're looking at an average of around $1,630 per month for next year. Now, here's where it gets really eye-opening. For someone receiving that average retirement benefit of about $2,000 monthly, approximately 33% of their entire cost of living adjustment is going to be consumed just by the Medicare Part B premium increase. 1/3 of your raise gone before you even see it, but it gets worse. For beneficiaries receiving around $800 per month or less, they're going to see virtually no increase whatsoever. Almost their entire COLA will be completely wiped out by the premium increase alone. These folks are essentially treading water. No forward progress at all. Now, I've been getting questions from people asking, wait, does this mean my benefit could actually decrease? If my COLA is smaller than the premium increase, will I end up with less money than before? The answer is no, and here's why. There's actually a provision within Social Security called the Hold Harmless Rule. This rule is designed to protect beneficiaries from seeing their actual benefit checks decrease due to Medicare premium increases. Here's how it works. If you're receiving a lower benefit amount, let's say around $700 per month or below, and the cost of living adjustment comes in and raises your benefit by a certain amount, but the Medicare premium increase exceeds that COLA increase, you won't see your benefit go down. Instead, your benefit stays exactly where it was, and they simply take whatever COLA increase you would have received to cover as much of the premium increase as possible. So technically, you're protected from a decrease, but let's be honest about what's really happening here. Your benefit stays flat while everyone else's goes up. You get zero raise, zero additional buying power, while inflation continues to erode the value of every dollar you're receiving. Now let's talk about how absolutely backwards this entire system appears to be, because this really highlights a fundamental issue with how these adjustments work. The people receiving the lowest benefits, we're talking about the most vulnerable beneficiaries, those who are barely scraping by on $600, $700, $800 a month. These are the folks who are getting little to no increase because the premium hikes are eating up everything. Meanwhile, they're also the ones who need every additional dollar the most desperately. On the flip side, beneficiaries receiving higher monthly amounts, let's say $3,000, $4,000 or more per month, they're getting the full benefit of the COLA increase, and the premium hike represents a much smaller percentage of their overall raise. They actually get to keep most of their cost of living adjustment. Does that make any sense to anyone? The people who need help the most get the least, while those who need it less get more. It's completely inverted from what would actually help struggling beneficiaries. Here's an idea, and maybe I'm crazy for suggesting this, but hear me out. What if we inverted the entire COLA system? What if lower income beneficiaries received a higher percentage cost of living adjustment, while higher income beneficiaries received a smaller adjustment, or perhaps none at all? Think about it from a practical standpoint. Someone receiving $800 a month is living in poverty. Every single dollar matters immensely. They're making impossible choices between medications, food, and keeping the heat on. An extra $50 or $100 per month could be absolutely life-changing for them. Meanwhile, someone receiving $4,000 per month is in a much more comfortable position. They're not facing the same desperate circumstances. Would it really impact their quality of life significantly if they received a smaller adjustment or their benefits stayed flat for a year? I'm not saying this to create division or to pit beneficiaries against each other. I'm simply pointing out that the current system seems to operate in a way that contradicts basic principles of helping those most in need. And we haven't even talked about the Medicare deductible yet. That's also going up by 10.1%, as a matter of fact. So we're not just dealing with the monthly premium increase. Anyone who needs to meet their deductible is facing an even larger financial burden. When you add everything together, the minimal COLA, the premium increase, the deductible increase, and the ongoing inflation affecting food, utilities, housing, and everything else, many beneficiaries are going to find themselves in an even tougher financial position despite getting what's supposed to be a raise. Here's what really frustrates me about this entire situation. These premium increases happen automatically. Nobody asks for your permission. Nobody sends you any kind of notice asking if this is okay with you. They just reach right into your Social Security check before it ever hits your account and take what they've decided they need. You work your entire life, you pay into the system, and then when you're finally receiving benefits, they can unilaterally decide to take a bigger chunk out of your monthly payment. And you have absolutely no say in the matter. Not even a courtesy notification, not even a thank you for your contribution. Just an automatic deduction that shows up on your benefit statement. And let's be clear about something else. This is happening at a time when every single dollar matters more than ever. We're living in an economy where prices continue to rise across the board. Groceries cost more, gas costs more, utilities cost more, prescription medications cost more, everything costs more. For beneficiaries on fixed incomes, this isn't just a minor inconvenience. This is the difference between being able to afford their medications or not. This is the difference between eating 3 meals a day or 2. This is the difference between keeping the thermostat at a comfortable temperature or bundling up in layers of clothing indoors during winter. Now, you've probably heard various proposals floating around about increasing benefits, providing one-time bonus payments, issuing stimulus checks, or creating special rebates for beneficiaries. There's been talk about temporary benefit increases, permanent enhancements, and various other ideas to help seniors and disabled individuals. And I want to be absolutely clear about something. These are all just proposals right now. They're concepts. They're ideas being discussed. Some have been introduced as legislation, but none of them have been enacted into law. Until something actually passes and gets signed, it's just talk. I'm not saying this to be pessimistic or to discourage anyone. I'm saying it because I think it's important to manage expectations and deal with reality as it exists right now, not as we hope it might be in the future. Could some of these proposals eventually become reality? Sure, it's possible. Should we advocate for changes that would help beneficiaries? Absolutely. But for right now, for next year, What we know for certain is the 2.8% COLA and the 9.6% premium increase. So what can you actually do about this situation? While you can't change the COLA or the premium increases, there are some steps you can take to minimize the financial impact. First, make sure you're enrolled in the most appropriate Medicare plan for your specific situation. Many people are paying for coverage they don't need or missing out on benefits they could be receiving. Medicare has different parts: Part A, Part B, Part C, Medicare Advantage, Part D, prescription drug coverage, and there are also Medigap supplemental plans. The right combination varies from person to person based on health needs, medications, and financial circumstances. The Medicare Annual Enrollment period happens every fall, and this is your opportunity to review and change your coverage for the following year. If you haven't looked at your options recently, you could potentially be overpaying significantly or missing out on better coverage. Second, look into assistance programs you might qualify for. Many states have programs that can help with Medicare premiums and other healthcare costs for low-income beneficiaries. The Medicare Savings Programs, for instance, can help pay for Part B premiums, deductibles, and co-payments if you meet the income requirements. Extra Help is another program that assists with prescription drug costs. Many people who qualify for these programs don't even know they exist, so they're leaving money on the table. It's worth taking the time to research what's available in your state and see if you qualify for any assistance. Third, review your prescription drug coverage carefully. Medication costs are often one of the biggest expenses for beneficiaries, and different Part D plans cover different medications at different cost levels. If your medications have changed or if you're anticipating new prescriptions, you want to make sure you're in a plan that covers what you need at the lowest possible cost. Let's circle back to that Medicare deductible increase I mentioned earlier, because this deserves more attention. A 10.1% increase means that if you need hospital services or other care that requires meeting your deductible, you're facing a significant additional expense right off the bat at the beginning of the year. For beneficiaries who are generally healthy and don't anticipate needing major medical services, this might not be a huge concern. But for those dealing with chronic conditions, those who need regular treatments, or those facing any kind of serious health issue, this deductible increase combined with the premium increase represents a substantial financial burden. And here's the thing: healthcare needs often increase as we age. So even if you're relatively healthy now, the statistical likelihood is that you'll need more medical care as years go by. These increasing costs aren't just affecting you today. They're establishing a trajectory that's going to continue affecting your finances into the future. Let's think about this from a longer-term perspective for a moment, because the cumulative effect of these changes over multiple years is really important to understand. If Medicare premiums are increasing by 9% to 10% annually, while COLA adjustments are only in the 2% to 3% range, you don't need to be a mathematician to see that this gap widens considerably over time. What might seem like a manageable difference in year one becomes increasingly problematic as years accumulate. Let's say you retire today at a $2,000 monthly benefit. Fast forward 10 years with this pattern continuing. Your benefit might have increased by 30% due to COLA adjustments, but your Medicare premiums could have more than doubled. That means an increasingly larger portion of your benefit is going to healthcare costs, leaving less for everything else. And remember, healthcare is just one expense category. You still need food, housing, utilities, transportation, and all the other costs of living. If one category is consuming more and more of your fixed income, something else has to give. I think it's also worth acknowledging the political reality of this situation, because these decisions don't happen in a vacuum. They're the result of political processes, competing priorities, and compromise. Medicare funding is a complex issue with strong opinions on all sides. Some argue that premiums should be higher to ensure the program's long-term solvency. Others argue that beneficiaries are already struggling and can't afford higher premiums. Some advocate for means testing, where higher income beneficiaries pay more. Others believe everyone should pay the same amount. These debates have been going on for decades, and they'll continue long into the future. The point isn't to determine who's right or wrong, but rather to understand that these aren't accidental outcomes. They're the result of specific policy choices made by elected officials. And that means your voice matters. If you feel strongly about these issues, contact your representatives. Let them know how these policies affect you personally. Vote for candidates who prioritize issues that matter to you. Policy changes happen when enough people make their voices heard. As we move into the new year, here's what beneficiaries should be prepared for. Your January benefit check will reflect the new 2.8% COLA increase. However, you'll also see the increased Medicare Part B premium deducted automatically. For many people, the net increase will be disappointing compared to what they were hoping for. You should receive notification from Social Security showing your new benefit amount and the deductions being taken out. Review this carefully to make sure the numbers are correct. Mistakes do happen, and it's important to catch them early. If you're enrolled in a Medicare Advantage plan or Part D prescription drug plan, those premiums might also change for the new year. Make sure you understand what your total healthcare costs will be so there are no surprises. Look, I know this information isn't what anyone wants to hear. Nobody likes finding out that their cost of living increase is going to be largely consumed by premium increases. But I believe it's important to be informed and to understand exactly what's happening with your benefits and your money. Knowledge is power. When you understand how these systems work, you're better equipped to plan accordingly, to find resources that can help, and to advocate for changes that could improve the situation. Stay informed about any new proposals or legislation that could affect Social Security or Medicare. Things can change, sometimes quickly, and you want to make sure you know about any changes that could impact your benefits. Consider connecting with advocacy organizations that work on behalf of Social Security and Medicare beneficiaries. Groups like AARP, the National Committee to Preserve Social Security and Medicare, and others work to represent beneficiaries' interests in policy discussions. And finally, take care of your health as best you can. I know that sounds simplistic, but the reality is that the healthier you can stay, the lower your healthcare costs will be, and the less these premium and deductible increases will impact you financially. The bottom line is this. Next year's 2.8% cost of living adjustment sounds reasonable on the surface, but when you factor in the 9.6% Medicare Part B premium increase and the 10.1% deductible increase, many beneficiaries are going to see very little actual improvement in their financial situation. Some will see virtually no change at all. This is happening at a time when inflation continues to affect every aspect of daily life, making this mismatch between COLA and premium increases even more problematic. I wanted to bring this to your attention because too many people don't understand these details until they see their January check and wonder where their cost of living increase went. At least now you'll know exactly what's happening and why. Stay informed, plan accordingly, and don't hesitate to seek help if you need it. There are resources available, even if they're not always easy to find. Thanks for taking the time to read through this information. I hope it helps you understand the situation better and prepare for what's coming. Knowledge might not solve the problem, but it at least helps you face it with your eyes wide open. Take care and remember, you've earned these benefits through a lifetime of work. Don't let anyone make you feel otherwise.